Long Road to Friendship, Chapter 5, If You're Gonna Come Around. There was a thud as Sunset dropped the last can of paint into the back of the truck. She rubbed her fingers on her jeans, smearing the leftover paint across them and making a face of disgust. She turned from the curbside and admired a week's worth of hard work that had resulted in the new front wall of the school. It more or less looked the same. Principal Celestia said the school budget couldn't allow them to spring for anything fancy, but still, Sunset felt some satisfaction knowing that she helped rebuild it with her own blood, sweat, and tears, and she vowed never to do it again. She had almost been able to sneak away the second they had put in the front door, but one of the workers had politely asked her to help stay and clean everything up, and Sunset just couldn't say no. Cleanup had taken another hour of Sunset's time. Not that she had much to do, but still, anything beat working longer than she had to. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon when the construction workers finally left, leaving Snips, Snails, and Sunset alone in front of the school. The two boys were talking to one another, while Sunset rested against the statue, her arms tired from another day of manual labor. Just as the two boys began walking away, Sunset called out to them. She had something that she needed to get off of her chest, and it had taken days to finally work up the nerve to say it.
Snips! Snails!
She barked. It hadn't meant to come out that way, she was just so used to addressing them as nothing more than servants. They both flinched before slowly turning around, like two children who had been caught stealing sweets from the kitchen. Their large puppy dog eyes made Sunset purse her lips and cross her arms out of habit. That was usually the expression they gave her when they had bad news to deliver, and they knew she hated bad news. Snips rubbed the back of his neck, trying to avoid Sunset's gaze.
Listen, Sunset, we don't want to hang out with you anymore.
Yeah,
Snails continued, taking slow steps backwards.
My mom said you're a bad influence, and we don't want to get in any more trouble.
Both of them proceeded to duck and cover their faces in preparation for Sunset's imminent lashing. She watched them stay like that for a whole minute, honestly thinking whether or not she should hit them one last time. But when the beating never came, Snails uncurled himself and looked up at Sunset with a more than usual dim-witted expression.
Aren't you gonna hit us?
No. Do you want me to hit you?
Snips covered Snail's mouth.
No, we're good,
he hastily said.
Alright then.
Sunset stared at them, trying to find the right words to say. She never really had apologized for anything before, at least not on her sole free will. She rolled her head back and looked up at the salmon-colored sky, sighing.
Listen, you two, I just wanted to say...
She mumbled something that was lost on the gentle wind.
What?
Snips and Snails asked simultaneously.
I said I'm sorry, okay?
She brought back her gaze to them. It must have been unnerving because both of them flinched again.
I'm sorry you guys got dragged down with me. You two were just following orders. None of this was your fault, so... I'm sorry.
Sunset fought against the urge to gag. The very act of asking for forgiveness made her feel sick to her stomach. But some small part of her, an annoying part that she was becoming more and more aware of, felt like she needed to apologize to the two that she had treated as helper monkeys for the past year. Both of them gave her stares of incomprehension. They looked at each other, then back to Sunset, then back to each other again.
Sunset, are you...
Snips was cut off by a wave of Sunset's hand.
No questions, just... No, I said sorry, okay? You don't have to accept it, but it's there.
She started walking down the road, past Snips and Snails, who flinched once more. She had reached the corner when Snips called back to her.
Sunset, thanks, I guess. For what it's worth, not all of it was bad.
Snails nodded.
Yeah, turning into monsters was pretty cool. It was just like Halloween.
Sunset just shook her head and kept walking.
Idiots.
She mumbled. Still, she was glad they didn't outright hate her. Under different circumstances, Sunset could have easily manipulated them back to working for her, but now, her heart just wasn't in it. She wanted to be cruel. She wanted to be spiteful. She wanted to blame everyone around her and lash out with revenge. But with every passing day, Sunset was finding it harder and harder to deny that she was in the wrong. The fault was hers. Well, mostly. She could still find some solace in blaming Princess Twilight Sparkle and her friends, but unfortunately that solace quickly melted into annoyance when she remembered that she now had to be friends with them. It was just one defeat after another. Beaten, cursed, and now forced to be friends with the people who put her in the situation in the first place.
Just until I can trick the elements into getting this curse off of me, then I'm gonna get my revenge and get as far away from them as possible.
She knew it was easier said than done. Tomorrow would be her first test. A whole day at the street fair. She gave an involuntary shudder at the thought. There were 1,000 things that she'd rather do than spend a whole day with the 5 of them.
I wonder if I tie myself up so I can't leave.
Sunset blanched.
Alright, now I'm just being ridiculous.
Sunset awoke to the sound of the repetitive ring of her alarm buzzing in her ears. She took her pillow and slammed it over her head to try to drown out the noise. Eventually, common sense returned to her, and she reached out to slap the alarm clock, shutting it off. Peaceful silence reigned throughout her room once more. Sunset closed her eyes in relief, eager to go back to sleep.
Technically, Pinkie never said when I had to be there.
Sunset was now inclined to believe that the universe hated her, for at the moment, she could hear her phone ring in her jacket pocket.
Don't pick it up, just leave it alone. You might be able to get out of this one on technicality.
The phone continued to emit its high-pitched ring, persistent on being answered. Sunset matched its persistence with her stubbornness, refusing to move out of her comfortable spot. As the phone rang and rang, the question of how any of them had gotten her number popped into her head. She made it a point to ask them the next time that she saw them. After an hour, Sunset was ready to chuck her phone out of the window. She crawled out of bed and thrust her hand into her jacket pocket, snatching her phone and checking the screen. 157 missed calls, 156, 157 voicemails, 50 text messages, all of them from one number. The phone vibrated in Sunset's hand, begging to be answered.
Just throw it, Sunset, rip out the battery. Ignore it. For the love of Celestia, just don't pick it up.
Sunset's thumb unflipped the phone, and she held it up to her ear.
Hello? Damn it, girl, why?
Oh my gosh, Sunset, I was starting to think that you were never gonna pick up.
Pinkie's shrill voice drilled into Sunset's brain.
Were you asleep? I bet you were asleep. I mean, it is Saturday. I just love sleeping in on Saturdays, but I love to hang out with my friends even more. And it's all of it anyway, and my granny pa used to always tell me, the early bird catches the worm. Which is a weird saying because we aren't actually birds and we definitely don't eat worms. Oh, but before I forget, we're all gonna meet at the corner of 3rd and Hay Street at noon, so we can start spending the day together. I forgot to tell you on Thursday and I'd hate for you to get lost.
Yes, Pinkie, I was asleep.
Sunset finally got to answer.
Oopsies, sorry I woke you up. But it's time to rise and shine anyway. Good morning, it's such a lovely day. Good morning.
Sunset slammed the phone shut, restraining herself to not throw it against the wall. It was decided she hated Pinkie Pie the most. With a loud groan, she stood up and looked at herself in the mirror, noting her horrible bedhead and the bags under her eyes.
I should probably get ready before I'm dragged down there looking like this.
She gathered her clothes for the day and made her way to the bathroom. The water felt exceptionally cold that morning. After getting dressed and applying a little makeup, Sunset moved to the kitchen and shoved a Hot Pocket into the microwave. Just as it dinged, Sunset felt a jolt run through her spine, and her legs began moving on their own accord.
No, wait a minute, I'm gonna go, just give me a sec!
She reached for her phone and checked the time. It was exactly noon. Sunset gripped onto the doorframe, trying to drag herself back into the kitchen to at least fetch her lunch. But the rest of her body wouldn't have it. With a few loud swears, Sunset gave up and marched out her front door, slamming it with extra vice.
This is officially cruel and unusual punishment. You're late.
Sunset glared at Rainbow Dash as she approached the 5 girls sitting at a small cafe on 3rd Street. They all gave her a welcoming smile, save for Rainbow, who had simply pointed an accusatory finger.
Oh, forgive me, Your Highness. I wasn't informed at the time until the last minute. Don't give me any of that.
Rainbow snapped.
Pinkie told us that she had spent an hour trying to call you.
Pinkie bobbed her head.
Yeah, but I guess I must have killed your battery because the connection died when I was talking.
Yeah, battery died. That was it.
Sunset made sure not to make eye contact.
Anyway, let's hurry up and get this over with.
Rainbow huffed.
No need to sound so enthusiastic. Feel free to leave whenever you want. Trust me, I would if I could.
Fluttershy put a hand on Rainbow's shoulder.
Be nice, both of you. We're here to have fun, remember?
Sunset looked down the street to where a plethora of booths and tables had been set up. Small carnival games were dispersed between trinket stands, and Sunset could even see a petting zoo way down at the end of the block. None of it looks really appealing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of this can constitute as fun.
Sunset said with a deep line of skepticism. She felt an arm wrap around her neck as Pinkie hooked her into a close embrace.
Oh, don't be such a party pooper, Sunset. There are all kinds of fun that can be had at a street fair.
Pinkie, you're violating rule number 1.
Sunset said testily. Pinkie removed her arm, but the smile didn't leave her face.
I really want to see that magic show later.
Fluttershy pointed to the end of the street.
I'd really love to go see the petting zoo, if it isn't too much trouble, that is.
Me and RD put on a wager.
Applejack said.
The one with fewer passes from the games has to come to school wearing the frilliest dress Rarity can make.
Rarity looked up from the smoothie that she had been drinking.
Why hadn't I been informed of this? We're telling you now, aren't we?
Rainbow grinned. Rarity stood up from the table and discarded her cup into the trash can.
Very well, I'll do it. But only because it would be absolutely worth to see Applejack and Phil's. Hey, what makes you think I'm gonna lose? Oh, nothing. But a girl can dream, can't she?
Sunset massaged her temples, swearing under her breath.
Listen, are you just gonna sit here and talk, or are you gonna actually do something? Because if I wanted to do nothing, I would have stayed at home.
Rainbow's grin melted back into a scowl.
Why don't you just go home then?
Sunset tried to turn and leave, but found her boots stuck to the ground. She looked back at Rainbow and growled.
I can't. Why not?
Sunset waited for her vocal cords to act on their own, her stomach constricted in fear, and she could feel her heart rate soar.
Crap, they'll find out about the curse. I'm doomed.
She didn't care if they had good intentions. If they found out that they could make her do anything they wanted just by asking her, her life would be over. It was bad enough with them involuntarily asking things of her, if they did it consciously. But only the words never came. There was no force on her throat like there usually was when she was asked a question. Sunset blinked slowly as the revelation dawned on her.
I don't have to tell them about the curse. I can lie about that. I don't have to tell them squat.
It seemed the elements had been merciful in some small degree. Sunset would have danced right then and there if it weren't for the confused stares that she was receiving. But still, she hadn't answered Rainbow's question. I had a feeling the elements wouldn't allow her to tell that truth, because that could complicate things or ruin the entire purpose in general. Anywho, let's get on to our very friendly donators. Top donators are 630, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Only One Thing, and Twinkie. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Sword Brother and Mordred, Omicron Library, Will, Chris, Dospo, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.